The mortgage for this place is $5,000 a month. I'm sure you, Hannah, can afford it. Please take care of it."
"What?" I raised my voice. My mother-in-law, Julia, acted surprised and theatrically shrugged her shoulders, saying, "Oh, scary, pretending to be the victim." My father-in-law, Derek, glared at me and shouted,
"It's only fair."
Let's rewind to several months ago. My name is Hannah. My husband, Matthew, and I are newlyweds. Since we both grew up in the same hometown, we decided to live somewhere in between my family home and Matthew's family home. You could say we're living close but apart. We thought it would be comforting to be within easy reach of both our families in case anything happened, but I ended up having issues with my in-laws. I first met them when Matthew and I got engaged and paid them a visit. Matthew had already warned me that he didn't get along well with his parents, saying, "My parents are reckless spenders and lack common sense, to be honest. I wouldn't mind cutting ties." Still, they were Matthew's parents. Taking advice from my own parents that it would be good to meet them at least once, we went to visit. Upon arriving, Julia warmly welcomed us. She didn't seem like the reckless spender, lacking common sense, that Matthew had described. There was a bit of a cold vibe toward me, but I thought that's just how mother-in-laws are toward their sons' wives. But their attitude changed in an instant when I told them where I worked. When Derek asked,
"So Hannah, where are you working?"
and I mentioned my company, their faces lit up instantly. From that moment on, they were thrilled, saying,
"We've got ourselves a wonderful daughter-in-law."
They welcomed me as if they had completely forgotten the slightly cold treatment just moments before. On our way home, Matthew warned,
"Be careful around my parents."
But at that time, I didn't understand what he meant. Then Matthew and I got married. A few weeks into our new life, I got a call from Julia after work. I picked up the phone and Julia quickly said, "Hannah, please come over right away. We'll be waiting at home," before hanging up. I thought maybe something had happened to my in-laws, so I rushed over to their house. Running in a suit in the summer heat, I was soaked in sweat. Though I was a sweaty mess, I rang the doorbell and a smiling Julia greeted me, making me feel a bit relieved. "Thank you for coming," she smiled as she welcomed me in. I wonder why they called me over. Sitting in the living room with a cup of coffee, my in-laws walk in with a laptop smiling. "What's going on? Is there something wrong with the laptop?"
"No, actually, we have something we want you to buy for us, Hannah."
"Buy for you?" Confused by the unexpected request, I'm left speechless. Ignoring my bafflement, Derek opens the laptop. Displayed are pictures of high-end designer bags and luxury watches. "So you want me to buy these for you?" "Yes, I'd like the bag and your father-in-law wants the watch." "Why should I buy these things for you?" My question prompts a sudden change in their facial expressions. The smiling faces turn stone cold and I feel a sense of dread. "We gave you the treasure that is our son, didn't we? You could at least buy us this much in return."
"You work for a well-known company, Hannah. You're wealthy. Just buy them, no complaints."
Frustrated, I shake my head. I can't justify buying such expensive gifts when it's not even a special occasion. Nonetheless, they keep pushing, eventually yelling at me from both sides. Overwhelmed, I end up caving in and making the purchase. The moment I buy the items, they return to their pleasant demeanor. "It's hot. Take your time and relax before you go," they say, which somehow makes it even more unsettling. Since I gave in once, they keep summoning me to buy various things for them. Each time I tried to refuse, but ultimately my fear of being yelled at from both sides made me give in. Matthew had told me he was often pestered for money by his parents when we were dating. But I always hesitated to bring it up because he clearly despised his parents. Feeling trapped and unsure what to do, another call from them comes in. I went to my in-laws' house wondering what I would be forced to buy this time. I knew from past experiences that if I didn't respond to the calls, I would receive a series of line messages like a demon. As usual, I was led into the living room, expecting my step-parents to bring their laptops again. But this time, it was different. This time, they bring out a stack of receipts. What's this? This is 1 month of our living expenses. We thought you could cover it for us. What?
You're wealthy, Hannah. You can afford this.
Saying so, Derek hands me a note with the total amount.
I did the calculations for you this time. Next time, just do it yourself.
The sum includes utilities, groceries, and other bills. I can't. I shake my head. I shouldn't have to bear your living expenses just because I'm married to your son. No sooner had the words left my mouth than I regretted them. Bracing for more yelling, Julia suddenly burst into tears, collapsing on the table.
Why won't you give us money? How could you be so cruel?
Derek, who's hugging a loudly sobbing Julia, yelled,
This is outrageous. People usually send money to their parents willingly, and we even calculated how much you should give us.
Both Derek's shouting and Julia's wailing ring in my ears. I just want to leave this place. I want it to be over. Unable to tolerate my in-laws' incessant complaining, I find myself handing over money yet again. But my funds are not infinite. At this rate, my savings will be drained by my in-laws. As I head home, I'm determined to talk to Matthew. But when I see him, I realize he's not in the state for any discussion. Though he came home before me, Matthew was just sitting in the dark staring blankly. Matthew, what's wrong? Turn on some lights at least. When I flip on the lights, Matthew turns his face towards me. What's going on? I ask a visibly drained Matthew, who replies,
I've been laid off.
Matthew had been troubled by conflicts with his boss for some time. Since we work in the same field, it wasn't surprising that Matthew was laid off. It must have been his disagreeable boss who put him on the chopping block. I can't add any more stress to Matthew's life right now. I keep the situation with my in-laws to myself. Weeks later, my in-laws summon me again, but this time it's different. Instead of their home, I'm called to a different location. And there it is, a mansion that stands out even in a suburban neighborhood. After double-checking the address in my map again, I ring the doorbell. A voice says, "Come in." It's unmistakably Julia. Why is Julia here? Although I have many questions, I enter when Julia says I can. Julia greets me in the entryway. Welcome. Whose house is this, I ask. Julia said with a surprised look on her face. It's our house, says Julia, looking shocked. I'm dumbfounded. My in-laws had been begging me for money, yet they've managed to build this mansion? As I'm guided into the living room, Derek is there. I sit down opposite them. How did you build a house like this?
We took out a loan. Even old folks like us found a lender willing to lend.
How will you repay the loan?
Asking you to help with that is why we invited you today, Derek laughs. The mortgage is $5,000 a month. You can handle that, Hannah.
What? When I raise my voice, Julia dramatically flinches, exclaiming, "Oh, you're scaring me." Derek glares at me.
It's to be expected. We're not working. Do you think we can pay $5,000 on our own?
Don't take a loan you can't repay. How did you even get approved? I shudder at the thought that they might have borrowed from a disreputable source. Julia pleads. Please, Hannah, don't be such a terrible daughter-in-law and abandon two old people like us. I get up from my seat. I can't pay this time. $5,000 a month is impossible. Excuse me.
Hey, wait,
Derek shouts, but I'm out the door. Scared that my in-laws would chase after me, I ran back home and quickly locked the door. I rushed to Matthew, who was working on his computer in his room.
Well, you scared me.
Welcome back, Hannah. What are you up to?
Working, actually. My side gig is doing really well, so I'm thinking of going solo. I should have told you sooner, Hannah.
Is that okay? Matthew had been down since getting restructured at work, but he was stronger than I thought. With this new Matthew, I felt like I could finally open up about Derek and Julia. That's what I thought. Matthew, it's about Derek and Julia. The moment I started talking, my tears started flowing. Matthew, surprised, gently rubbed my back and asked, "What happened?" As I sobbed like a child, I explained the situation to Matthew, who then sighed in frustration.
Ugh, my parents. When will they stop tormenting people?
It turns out Matthew had endured similar treatment from my in-laws before we got married. Since he had calmed down after getting married, he thought that his parents had also become calmer as they got older.
Who would have thought they'd be targeting you, Hannah?
What should we do? At this rate, we'll have to pay Derek and Julia $5,000 every month. Matthew thought for a moment, then said, "Let's move."
If we move and change our numbers, we can cut them off for good.
But if they come to my workplace, we're done for. They even know where I work. Feeling cornered, Matthew made another suggestion.
In that case,
Weeks went by, and then I got a call from Julia.
Hannah, where are you? Your old address has a different name on it. They said you're not at work. The due date for the loan is long past.
I calmly responded, I'm not paying.
What?
The loan. I'm not paying it. Figure it out yourselves, and by the way, this number will soon be out of service.
I'm not done talking.
Ignoring her, I hung up. Matthew and I immediately changed our phone numbers, cutting off all contact for good. To escape my in-laws, we moved abroad. We only shared our new contact information with my parents and close friends. What Matthew had suggested was for me to quit my job and move overseas. Matthew had made it big in the online business world, allowing me to quit my job. We were doing just fine on his income alone. Now I work part-time in a foreign country to earn some extra cash. I got word from a former coworker that my in-laws had showed up at my workplace yelling, "Where's Hannah?" They even got escorted out by the police. They got off with just a warning, but my coworker said they looked desperate and it was scary. Why had my in-laws become so frantic? We found out a year after moving abroad when I received a mysterious call. It was from Julia. I didn't recognize the number, but when I picked it up, it was Julie on the other end.
Hello, Hannah, please, you've got to help us.
Somehow my phone number had gotten to Julia. I rushed to Matthew, switched on the speaker, and we both listened. Apparently, my in-laws had borrowed money from a shady company and were facing forced labor for not paying it back.
Is Matthew listening? Please transfer at least $30,000 or we could die from forced labor. Absolutely not, Matthew responded. I've suffered enough from their lack of sense all my life. They didn't even support my education, yet took most of the money I earned. I have no love left for them. Let them face the consequences. But Matthew, don't say that. Please help Mom. To make up for their past, they should suffer.
Matthew's words left Julia crying loudly. Then a male voice came on.
Okay, we're taking your parents.
I was too stunned to speak, but Matthew calmly said,
Please go ahead.
We never found out where they took my in-laws, but nobody in the family even looked for them. We certainly didn't want to find them. They were pretty sturdy for old folks, so they're probably still working hard somewhere. That's what I think. Life for us has been peaceful ever since. Matthew seems more energized in his work and with my assistance on the side. He even started his own small business. We built a big house overseas and even hired a maid. We're expecting another member in our family soon.
Your belly is getting bigger.
Yes, would it be okay to go back to my parents' place and show them their grandchild? We've only been talking over the phone ever since we left because of the in-laws. Since we ran away from his parents, we've only been able to talk to my parents over the phone. Matthew, whom I thought would never want to go back, immediately said,
Sure, let's go.
You're okay with that? You don't mind?
As long as my parents aren't there, anywhere is heaven to me.
Smiling, Matthew gently stroked my belly.
I want to meet you soon.
When I saw Matthew smiling as if he had been rid of that possession, I felt from the bottom of my heart how glad I was to be able to cut ties with his parents.